All right, let's get real. Ever notice how some people just love to test your boundaries? They interrupt, make passive-aggressive comments, or act like your time and feelings are optional, and we're supposed to just smile and let it slide. Not today. If you're done putting up with people who don't respect you, this video is for you. Today, I'm breaking down brutally honest, maybe a little controversial, ways to handle disrespect without losing your cool and without sacrificing your self-respect. So buckle up, because by the end of this, you'll have every tool you need to show people exactly where the line is drawn. Let's dive in. 1. Embrace the silent stare. Right, let's start with one of my all-time favorite slightly savage techniques, the silent stare. Now you might be thinking, really? Just staring? Yes, trust me on this. When someone's being openly rude or disrespectful, nothing throws them off more than a long, calm, completely unbothered stare. Here's why it works. People who disrespect others are usually looking for a reaction. They want you to stammer, get flustered, maybe even snap back. They're looking to drag you into their drama, to make you question yourself or feel small. But when you just look at them, no words, no expressions, suddenly the power dynamic flips. I get it. This might sound a little passive-aggressive, but hear me out. There's something deeply unsettling about someone who doesn't give the reaction they were expecting. When you hold a steady, silent stare, you're saying without a word, "I'm not playing this game with you." It's a way of reclaiming control without even lifting a finger. And sometimes that silent stare is the clearest, most powerful no you'll ever say. Let me tell you about a time this technique worked like magic. I was in a group meeting where one guy kept talking over me, cutting me off like he was on a mission. You know the type, loud, overconfident, thinking everyone's there to listen to his wisdom. I tried interjecting, tried being polite, but he wouldn't stop. So finally, I just looked at him. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and held his gaze. No blinking, no expression, just stared. For 5 solid seconds, I said nothing. You could feel the tension build. And the best part? Everyone else at the table started looking at him too, wondering what he'd do. You know what happened? He got uncomfortable, stumbled over his words, and suddenly looked anywhere but at me. Didn't interrupt me for the rest of the meeting. That silent stare did more than any words could have. And it didn't just stop his behavior in the moment, he actually started treating me with more respect after that. As if he'd finally realized I wasn't someone he could just bulldoze. Sometimes you have to show people who you are without saying a word. Let's dig a little deeper, because this is more than just a power move. When you embrace the silent stare, it's like a reminder, to them and to yourself, that you don't have to dance to someone else's tune. You don't owe anyone an emotional reaction, and you don't have to prove yourself to people who don't see your worth. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. Too often, when someone is disrespectful, we feel an urge to defend ourselves, to make our case, or worse, to let it slide because we don't want to create a scene. But the silent stare, it's not about being aggressive. It's about showing that you're grounded, unbothered, and unapologetically in control of your own emotions. It's also about accountability. People who are used to disrespecting others often do it without even thinking. They've never been called out, never faced real consequences for treating others poorly. When you give them that silent, deadpan look, it's like you're holding up a mirror. Suddenly, they're left alone with their own behavior. You're not telling them they're wrong. You're showing them, and most people don't like to see themselves like that. That's why this works. 2. Embrace silence as your answer. Here's a little secret weapon that's incredibly underrated: silence. When someone disrespects you, one of the most powerful responses is no response at all. Now, I know what you're thinking. Silence feels passive, almost like you're letting them get away with it, right? But here's the truth: silence is far from passive. It's a choice, and sometimes it's the boldest, loudest answer you can give. When someone's throwing negativity at you, they're trying to pull you into their drama, to make you feel small or defensive. But when you don't engage, when you just let their words hang in the air without responding, it forces them to sit alone with their own behavior. And that silence? It's deafening. Here's why this works so well. People who disrespect others usually expect a reaction. They're looking for a fight, a justification, or just some kind of validation for their own behavior. But silence says, I'm not giving you my energy. By not engaging, you're keeping control of the conversation and letting them know, I'm not here to entertain your disrespect. Sometimes, the most powerful way to communicate is by not communicating at all. It's a quiet, subtle reminder that they're not worth your time or your words. I remember once being in a situation with someone who just couldn't resist making these little digs. You know, the kind of person who hides their insults as jokes and tries to pass it off as harmless fun. One day, he said something completely unnecessary about my work, clearly just to get a rise out of me. Normally, I would have tried to explain myself, or maybe even fired back a comment. But this time, I just looked at him, raised an eyebrow, and said absolutely nothing. I let his words hang in the air, let him feel that awkward, silent pause. And you know what? He didn't know what to do. He looked at me, then looked down, mumbled something, and moved on. That moment was the last time he tried pulling that with me. It was like he realized that if I wasn't reacting, there was no power to be gained. And that's the beauty of silence. It starves disrespect of the attention it craves. Here's the deeper message. When you choose silence, you're choosing yourself. You're saying, I value my peace over your opinion of me. And that's not just empowering, it's revolutionary. So often, we feel pressured to respond, to explain ourselves, to defend our choices or prove our worth, to people who frankly aren't even interested in respecting us. But by embracing silence, you're refusing to play by their rules. You're taking a stand without lifting a finger. You're letting them know you're not worth my words. And it's not just about controlling the situation. It's about reclaiming your energy. Silence is like a filter. It keeps your peace intact by blocking out the negativity others try to project onto you. The moment you stop feeling the need to respond to every rude comment, every passive-aggressive jab, you free yourself. You stop giving people access to your inner world, and you start living on your own terms. I'll be real with you, learning to use silence wasn't easy for me. I used to think that if I didn't defend myself, I'd look weak or passive. But I started noticing something. Every time I responded to people who disrespected me, I'd end up drained and frustrated. But when I held my tongue, when I let their comments pass by like white noise, I realized I felt lighter, stronger, more in control. It was like I took back a piece of my power every time I chose silence over reaction. So here's my challenge to you. The next time someone disrespects you, just pause, take a deep breath, look them in the eye, and say nothing. Let your silence speak for itself. You might be surprised by how uncomfortable they get, and how freeing it feels for you. Embrace silence as your answer, because sometimes saying nothing is the most powerful statement of all. 3. Stop explaining your choices. All right, this one's going to hit home for a lot of us. Stop explaining your choices. Seriously, how many times have you made a decision for yourself only for someone to immediately start asking you why? Why did you do that? Why didn't you go to that event? Why'd you take that job? People seem to think they're entitled to an explanation for everything we do. Here's the honest truth, they're not. Your choices are your own, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you live your life. It might sound controversial, but let's face it. If someone's questioning your choices, they're often not looking to understand. They're looking to judge, to poke holes, to make you doubt yourself. Or worse, to feel better about their own decisions by making you second-guess yours. And you know what? You don't have to play along. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your autonomy and show them that your life isn't up for debate. Let's dig a bit deeper. Why do people feel so entitled to an explanation in the first place? Often, it's because your decision challenges their view of the world. Maybe you're taking a risk they're too scared to take. Maybe you're stepping out of the norm they find so comforting. Your independence, or your willingness to do things differently, makes them uncomfortable. And asking you to explain is their way of trying to pull you back into their comfort zone. But here's the kicker. Just because they're uncomfortable doesn't mean you're responsible for reassuring them. Your life is not a public service announcement. You don't have to justify your choices to anyone. I remember when I decided to switch careers. moving from a safe, stable job to something I was actually passionate about, even though it came with a lot more risk. The moment people found out, it was like I had announced I was moving to Mars. I kept getting asked, "Why would you leave a stable job? How are you going to make it work?" At first, I tried to explain. I talked about wanting something more fulfilling. I explained my plan. But no matter what I said, it never felt like enough. The more I explained, the more they questioned me, poking holes, making me feel like I needed to prove myself. Then one day, I tried something new. Someone asked, "But why would you leave that job?" I simply replied, "Because I wanted to." No extra details, no breakdown of strategy, just a simple, solid answer. And let me tell you, it felt amazing. The silence that followed was everything. People didn't know how to respond because I had taken away their power to question my choices. And you know what? They eventually stopped asking. Here's the real beauty of not explaining yourself. It's freeing. It's you standing in your own truth, knowing that your decisions are enough, simply because you made them. When you stop justifying your actions, you give yourself permission to live authentically, without the weight of other people's expectations. You stop wasting energy on explanations and start pouring it into actually living the life you want. There's a powerful lesson here. Your life doesn't need an audience vote. Not every decision has to be analyzed or approved by others. And when you stop explaining yourself, you're sending a powerful message. I'm confident enough in my choices that I don't need your approval. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a truly confident person breaking down their decisions for others? Probably never. Because people who own their lives don't seek external validation. They know the only approval that matters is their own. I've been there. I used to be the person who'd give a full PowerPoint presentation just to justify why I was doing something, trying to get people on board. But over time, I realized that explaining myself only made me second-guess my choices. So I made a pact with myself. If someone asks me about a decision, I'll answer briefly, maybe give a sentence or two. If they push for more, I smile and move on. And you know what? Life got a lot lighter. The more I stopped explaining, the more confident I became in my own decisions. So here's my challenge to you. The next time someone questions your choices, resist the urge to explain. Just say, "Because I wanted to. That's what felt right for me." Then let the silence speak. Watch how powerful that simple statement becomes. You'll feel stronger, more in control, and more at peace with yourself. And the best part? You'll realize your choices don't need anyone else's stamp of approval. They're valid because you made them. 4. Keep your distance. Let's be real. Sometimes the best way to handle people who don't respect you is to just keep your distance. I know it sounds harsh, maybe even a little cold. But here's the hard truth. Not everyone deserves a front-row seat in your life. And if someone's consistently disrespecting you, one of the healthiest moves you can make is to give yourself some space from them. This doesn't mean you hate them, or that you're being dramatic. It means you respect yourself enough to protect your energy. Keeping your distance isn't about being mean or ignoring people. It's about choosing where and how you spend your time and energy. Imagine your life is a limited access club. Not everyone gets a VIP pass. If someone's constantly crossing your boundaries, making you feel small, or just radiating negativity, why on earth would you keep them close? It's okay to step back. In fact, it's crucial. Distance gives you clarity. Clarity to see things as they really are. Free from guilt, emotional fog, or manipulation. Think about it. When you keep people who disrespect you close, it's like inviting them to a mental and emotional buffet, where they can take, criticize, judge as much as they want. And then we wonder why we feel drained, anxious, or frustrated. Giving yourself space from these people isn't selfish. It's self-preservation. It's about protecting your mental health, preserving your peace, and making room for people who actually respect and uplift you. Letting go of the guilt around distancing yourself is one of the most liberating things you can do. You are not obligated to keep disrespectful people in your life, even if they're family, even if you've known them for years. Let me tell you a story. I once had a friend who always found a way to make snide comments about every choice I made. My career, my relationships, even my taste in music. At first, I told myself, that's just how they are. Maybe I'm overreacting. So I kept them around, brushed it off, but over time, those little jabs started getting under my skin. I realized I was walking on eggshells, always bracing for the next criticism, the next joke that felt more like a punch. Then one day I tried a new approach. No big announcement, no confrontation. I just started limiting my time with them. Instead of seeing them every week, I'd see them once a month, then once every few months. And guess what? I felt lighter, I felt freer, and in that space I realized how toxic that friendship had become. That distance gave me the mental clarity to see the truth. I deserved friends who build me up, not people who tear me down. Now here's something important. Some people will tell you that keeping your distance is selfish. They'll say, but they're family. You've known them forever. You're being dramatic. Society tells us to be loyal, to forgive, to be nice. But at what cost? Here's the secret they don't want you to know. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. You are not here to be someone's emotional punching bag. You're not required to give unlimited access to people just because of shared history. Sometimes the most powerful way to show someone you've had enough is by simply stepping back. And here's where it gets deep. Keeping your distance is a reminder that you are your own priority. You don't have to play the role someone else has assigned to you. You don't owe anyone access to your time, your emotions, your mind. When you put space between yourself and disrespectful people, you make a bold statement. My well-being comes first, and that's not just self-care, that's self-respect. Distance also creates space for what matters, for relationships that uplift you, for people who genuinely want to see you thrive. Because here's the truth, the more time you spend around people who respect you, the more confident, joyful, and fulfilled you feel. The less time you spend around those who drain you, the less power they have over your thoughts, your energy, your life. I used to feel guilty about distancing myself from people, even when they didn't treat me well. I'd think, what if they think I don't care? Maybe I'm overreacting. But over time, I realized something powerful. Distancing myself wasn't about rejecting them. It was about choosing me. It wasn't about being cruel. It was about protecting the peace I had fought so hard to build. When I gave myself permission to pull back from toxic people, I felt a new kind of freedom. I had more energy, more peace, and a crystal clear vision of who I wanted in my life and who I didn't. So here's your challenge. Think about the people in your life who constantly disrespect you, who make you feel small, drained, or anxious. Then ask yourself, do they really deserve this much access to me? You already know the answer. 5. Hold your head high. Let's talk about an old-school classic that never goes out of style. Holding your head high. Now I know, this might sound like generic advice, but trust me, this one is pure gold when it comes to dealing with people who don't respect you. Here's the thing, when someone is disrespectful, they're banking on one thing, making you feel small. They want you to doubt yourself, to lower your eyes, to shrink into the background. But when you stand tall and hold your head high, you're saying, without a single word, I know exactly who I am, and nothing you say or do will make me feel less. Here's what's powerful about this. Confidence makes people uncomfortable, especially people who disrespect others. Why? Because they rely on the idea that their words or actions have power over you. They want to influence you, control you, break your spirit, just a little. But when you don't flinch, when you literally stand taller, shoulders back, chin up, you're showing them that they don't have that power. You're unbreakable. And people who thrive on disrespect, they have no idea what to do with that. I remember being around someone who couldn't resist throwing little insults every time we met. You know the type, always a smirk, always a joke that's more of a dig than anything funny. At first, I tried brushing it off, but honestly, it got to me. I started dreading being around them, feeling like I had to defend myself constantly. Then one day, I'd had enough. I walked in, shoulders back, head high, and every time they said something slick, I just smiled, looked them in the eye, and carried on like nothing happened. And you know what? They backed off. Fast. It was like they could sense that their comments weren't landing anymore, that I was too far above it, too grounded, too sure of myself. Suddenly, their power vanished. There's something magnetic about holding your head high. It's like a silent force field that says, "I'm untouchable." And here's where it gets spicy. People who don't respect you. They hate seeing you confident. It messes with their worldview. They want to believe they're above you, that they've got something on you. But when you walk confidently, unapologetically, it disrupts that entire narrative. To them, it's almost offensive, because society doesn't always know what to do with people who are unshakably sure of themselves, especially when those people refuse to let others define their value. But here's the truth. Holding your head high isn't about them. It's about you. It's about walking through life like you know your worth, because you do. It's about living like you've got nothing to prove, because you don't. And that, my friend, is a radical act of self-respect. When you hold your head high, you're making a silent declaration. I am enough. I am worthy. I don't need anyone's approval to feel powerful. Because real self-worth isn't something you earn from others. It's something you claim for yourself. It's not about being loud. It's not about proving anyone wrong. It's about walking with the quiet confidence of someone who knows, I don't need your respect to respect myself. And the best part? The more you practice this, the less other people's disrespect even registers. You'll be too focused on your goals, too connected to your truth, too grounded in your own lane, to care about someone else's attempt to drag you down. This didn't come naturally to me. I used to slouch, avoid eye contact, shrink myself to avoid conflict. But over time I realized, every time I stood tall, head high, I felt stronger. It was like reminding myself, I don't need permission to feel worthy, I already am. And here's your final challenge. The next time someone disrespects you, whether it's a subtle dig or a full-on insult, don't react. Take a breath. Pull your shoulders back, hold your head high. Look them in the eye like you see them, but you're above them. Feel that calm, steady confidence settle into your bones. Feel the power of not shrinking. That's self-respect in motion. Because at the end of the day, respect starts with you. The more you respect yourself, the less space there is for anyone else's disrespect to stick. So, stand tall, own your worth, and remember, you're worth every bit of that confidence. Wrap up, and there you have it. 5 brutally honest, powerful ways to handle people who don't respect you. 1. Embrace the silent stare. 2. Use silence as your answer. 3. Stop explaining your choices. 4. Keep your distance. 5. Hold your head high. Life's too short to spend it shrinking yourself for people who don't even see your value. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. All you need is to own your power, and the rest will fall into place. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, hit like, hit subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder to stand tall and protect their peace. And drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay strong, take up space, and remember, respect starts with you.